So let me start by asking you a question. Raise your hands if you'd like to be even more fulfilled and successful in life, personally and professionally. And raise your hand again if you'd like to achieve this whilst becoming healthier mentally and physically. In fact, say I. So where are you now? Maybe the vision that you had in mind for yourself is not being realised in the way that you hoped anymore. And you're becoming increasingly frustrated, and your motivation is beginning to fade. And you're finding that your sleep is beginning to deteriorate. Or perhaps you're becoming busier and busier in life and you've got no time to do the things that you want to do. And you're finding that at evenings and weekends, you're saying those inevitable words, just 5 minutes, just 5 minutes. And we all know that it's not going to be just 5 minutes. And it's another evening and weekend without your family, your friends, or just spending time alone. Or potentially, you are feeling like an imposter. And you're wondering how you got into the role that you're in. And you're wondering when you're going to get found out. And the problem with that is that you're always volunteering for things just to prove yourself to others, which means that you become exhausted and burnt out. Or perhaps you are feeling like every single day is like Groundhog Day and nothing seems to be changing. And you felt like you hit this concrete ceiling. And you don't know what the future has in mind for you, but you know it's not this. Which means that it's affecting your relationships because you might be becoming a little less tolerant or patient and a little bit snippy. So the question is where do you want to be instead? Where do you want to be? Imagine that time where it's 6:05 in the morning and you turn to your alarm clock and you know you've got another 25 minutes to go, but you don't mind because you're finally living life with passion and purpose and you're enjoying the business that you're in. Or picture that time where the key people in your life are all striving for a common direction and your values and your beliefs are all aligned. And you're finally loving the business that you're in. Or maybe you've transformed and created your own business that you love. Or envisage that time when you do finally have more freedom and you're spending time with your family, your friends, or you're just spending time alone. But you know what's so wonderful? Is that no one is disturbing your peace. Or visualise that time where you are finally feeling empowered and energised and motivated, which means that you're creative, the people that work with you are creative. And the wonderful thing about that is that people are knocking on your door to come and work with you, for you, or maybe buy from you, because they're loving the culture that you've created. The question is if you are over here and you want to get over to here, how are you going to get there? Now, I believe that you're going to achieve this by truly rediscovering your why. And what do I mean by your why? I mean, doing what gives you passion, what gives you purpose, what gives you joy in life. Take, for example, people like Richard Branson. He not only lives his purpose, he breathes it. And everybody around him has clarity of that purpose. They either want to buy from him, work with him, or for him. The question is why is it important? According to KPMG, over 75% of female executives and leaders in corporate America alone have suffered imposter syndrome or burnout at one time or the other. Consider that for the rest of the globe. And Psychological Today, and probably quite a few of you are familiar with this fact, we have over 50,000 thoughts per day, of which over 50% of them are negative ones. And do you know what's even more amazing about that? Is that 90% of them from the previous day. How crazy. But when we have a purpose, we can change those negative thoughts into positive energy, which then gives us a much healthier lifestyle. And the NHS have cited that it also has multiple other benefits, having a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose in life. Our mental health, our physical well-being, and our cognitive function. Because as someone said yesterday, is that it's all about your physical health, your mental health, your soul, and everything becomes in balance. And the question is why is it important now? I heard something the other day, and I thought I was talking to the ladies last night, and we was talking about the fact that the gender bias gap will take 62 years to close in just Northern Europe, 70 years in the rest of Europe, and 160 years in North America, which is insane, a country that's westernised. Now the thing is the only way we are going to change that narrative is by us making change ourselves, taking control of that, setting up businesses or doing something we love and stopping behaving in a way that's not congruent to us and doing what we love. COVID, wonderful COVID. Now there are some negatives, as we all know with COVID, but one of the positives that came out of it is that people realise is that they can prioritise their lives in a much better way. They can spend time with their family and their friends. So when they do go to work, they want to enjoy it whilst they're there. Have a sense of meaning. And then, of course, on top of that, we've also got the other pandemic. The pandemic that has more than doubled since COVID. The pandemic of burnout. So we have to take back control and do something about it and change this. Now the question is why would you listen to me? Well, before I share that with you, let me start by asking you a question. Have you ever been to one of those parties, you know, the masquerade parties, where you don't quite know the real person behind the mask? It can be quite exciting, fun, curious, mysterious. Except, what happens if you have to wear that mask every single day? It's December 2019 and I'm heading towards security in Schiphol Airport, Amsterdam. Now I love it here. It's almost like a second home. I've been coming backwards and forwards for 8 years for work. And it's so easy going through the airport. You just scan your passport and you're through. Now you see those stairs over there? I should take them really. But have you ever been to Schiphol Airport? Well, it feels like it's like a mile walk just to get to the gate on the other side. So this time I think I'll take the escalator. Gosh, that creaky, whiny sound. In fact, it's not dissimilar to the creaky, whiny sound that I'm feeling in the pit of my stomach. And my chest is hurting so much. I know why that is. It was that bloody interview. I mean, why on earth I was having an interview in the first place? I've worked for the company for 23 years. And I was the one that helped to design the new organisation in the first place. And it did not go well at all. In fact, I really need to get off this escalator. I'm not feeling right at all. My head is spinning. What's she doing here? As I look up into her dark brown eyes, and her bob is framing her round face, and her arms across. Now, Joyce is one of these ladies that looks not dissimilar to Dawn French, you know, from the Vicar of Dibley. And yet, unlike her smile rarely greets her eyes. And I don't want to hear what she's got to say. Oh, Keely, why do you keep doing this to yourself? When are you going to realise that you can't keep everybody happy? You're not responsible for their future. In fact, your team have said you're not responsible for their future. I know, Joyce, but every single time I have to tell another member of my team that I'm putting them at risk, I do feel responsible. And I feel like I'm dying inside. I know. But there's only so much you can do, Keely. And do you know whose future you are responsible for? Your own. Now, the thing is, that wasn't quite right, was it? Because here I am, not a month later, and I'm sitting across from Joyce, from HR, on a Zoom call. And she says to me, well, Keely, looks like you haven't paid attention to what we've got to say, but it doesn't matter now, because we've taken it out of your hands. Because you wasn't successful in your interview, and I'm afraid you've been put for risk for redundancy. Just like that. And overnight, my world came crashing down with me. And mentally and physically, I shut down. So maybe you have had that time where you've been putting on that mask. That mask of a brave face. That brave face that says, don't worry. Nothing to see here, everything's fine. That brave face that says, everything's okay, don't worry about me. That brave face that says, it's okay, I'll sort it all out. Now the thing is I still had some life-changing decisions that I needed to make. But mentally I wasn't in the right space to do it. I'd been signed off by HR. I couldn't even talk to my family and friends. And of course, COVID struck. I couldn't even speak to my therapist. Yay! But I did start to make improvements. I did start to find my own way. And I began to reset. I went walking with my dogs every day. I started doing things like gardening. It actually turned out that I really enjoyed it. Which was just as well, because I'm not saying my garden was overgrown, but I'd actually created my own forest. And I started listening to things like Gardener's World, and I went from growing weeds to gunning to want to be on the Chelsea Flower Show, put a teeth in. And I then started to re-energise. I started to actually start being present. The noise stopped. I started doing things like yoga and meditation. I started listening to things like Find Your Why by Simon Sinek and books about mental health and burnout. And the words of Joyce kept on repeating around in my head. And on reflection, she was right. I had been that person that wanted to keep everybody happy. Not setting any personal boundaries, volunteering for everything. But the thing is, I didn't know why. And that was until a month later, and I'm in the garden. The sun is shining. I'm in my shorts and my t-shirt. I'm on the sun lounger. got a gin and tonic in hand. It's only 6 o'clock in the evening. And well, there's 6 o'clock somewhere, that's right. And I'm reading yet another book. According to this, it says that there's 4 key reasons for being a people pleaser. It's not that one. It's not that one either. Smacks of that one, I think. Oh my God. Yep, that's the one. A fear of confrontation. Not rocking the boat, always keeping the peace. But the question is, what does a fear of confrontation really mean? I mean, what drives that pattern of behaviour? Is it a need to protect yourself? Is it a need to protect your family? Now, I had to dig deep with myself and try to find out why it was that I had the fear of confrontation, why I was wearing the mask of a people pleaser, because it wasn't serving me, and it certainly wasn't serving my family. So I had to find a way. And the question is how do you stop being a people pleaser? Well, I learned how to stop being a pleaser. I learned to please myself. And I learned that by being able to rediscover what I loved, what gives me passion. And I realised after the 23 years of being in that corporate executive environment, but the one thing that I loved more than anything was training and coaching people, seeing that light shine in their eyes when they have that eureka moment. You see that shift when they suddenly change and a smile appears. That is what I love. And that was when I decided to take a step back from the corporate world and set up my own coaching business and do what I love. Isn't it funny how someone can say something, or you just read a line in a book that makes you realise that you don't need to wear that mask anymore? Now, the thing is I would love to say that overnight I had people queuing down my door, knocking to come and see me. Yeah. And then I also had my mum and dad saying, do you really want to do this, Keely? I mean, you've got no other income coming into the home. And of course I had my friends going, a coaching business? What do you know about running a coaching business? But I knew I'd found my why and what I loved. And I knew this is what I had to do. And little by little, things did start to improve. And you know the old saying, don't work with animals or children or husbands. Well, I did work with my husband, and I helped to unlock something that had been causing him anxiety for a while and transformed the way that he was thinking something. I then did my first 5-day challenge, and one of my clients, in one moment, I just see that shift, and she realised that she didn't have to work the 70 hours that she was working. She could spend time with her family and friends, and she'd been actually hiding from a problem that she didn't want to face. She could be vulnerable with her family, her friends, her work colleagues. So her business started improving. She's sleeping so much better, and mentally and physically she feels amazing. And where am I? Well, who'd have thought little old Keely would have become a #1 best-selling author on her first book and be invited to international speaking engagements like Northern Ireland and more recently in Cancun, Mexico, which I have to say was very lovely. A bit noisy because it was on the beach, but it was lovely. And all of it I get to do using my Freedom Transformation Formula, which I'm looking forward to sharing in a workshop soon. But before I go, let me leave you with this thought. Life is not a masquerade. Life is about being who you truly are and doing what you love and what gives you joy. Thank you.